How you doing, ladies and gentlemen? Mono guy here. Cheers. Drink a little mm, Texas red wine. Really enjoying this Texas red wine. This particular wine is from um, Red River Wines up near Sadler, up in the Texoma AVA. Check them out sometime. Website is www.redriverwines.com. You got to make an appointment for weekends. And while you're up there in Texoma, off of Highway 82 up north in Texas. Visit some of the other Texoma AVA wineries. A lot of good stuff going on up there. What you may not know is what something fascinating is, I guess, is that in 1975, yesterday, 1975, Monday, September 29th, 1975, my family, my mom and dad, myself, my brother Paul, brother Michael, and sister Rachel got on a plane at Love Field at Braniff, flew to New York, then jumped on a Lufthansa jet to Tehran, Iran. That's right, Tehran, Iran, 50 years ago yesterday. What a remembrance for me being a 15-year-old. I do remember also that the Friday before, which was, this past Friday, 50 years ago, some of my close friends decided it would be fun to toilet paper my house. Man, my dad was furious. He says, good grief, now my grandparents, who were going to be taking care of the house back and forth between their home, we're going to have to clean up the mess. Well, I was out there all weekend picking toilet paper out of the trees. Great friends, huh? And they know who they are. John, Kim, Gretchen, anyway, others. So 1975, we got on that plane. We stood in New York for a few hours, then jumped on and headed that direction. We stopped that next morning. I guess it must have been 4 or 5, maybe 6 in the morning, something like that, in Frankfurt, Germany, just for a quick layover, picking up people, dropping people off. We didn't actually get off the plane. The first things I noticed was that outside the airplane, there were people with machine guns standing around, not people, but military, which was kind of eye-opening for a 15-year-old from Dallas, Texas, Carrollton, Texas, to be exact. Then we took off and headed to Tehran. We got into Tehran again fairly early in the morning, and as we flew in, the lights looked so different. Here, they're fairly bright all over the United States, but there, third world country, they were almost orange. It was the power grid was weak, and one thing we did notice, though, I don't know if it was myself or one of my siblings that noticed out the window that there was a Kentucky Fried Chicken. Wow! So a little piece of heaven, little piece of home there. We used to love Kentucky Fried Chicken. Well, I'll tell that story at some other point because I'm going to share some things that have happened over the last few years. And, well, I shouldn't say that, not few years, but things that happened the few years we were there is what I meant to say. So we landed and tired as could be, been flying all day and all night, it seemed like. And then, of course, we got our cab. We had some drivers, so they came to pick us up, and it took two cars because we also had luggage. We only took the luggage we could carry, which were our carry-ons. The rest of our clothes and a lot of our belongings were coming the next 24, 48 hours. So we got ourselves into some cars, headed over to what we called the Royal Tehran Hilton, which was at the time one of the top hotels in the country, not in the city, but in the country. Tehran was the capital, so that's where the Shah of Iran was located, and their White House, for lack of a better term, I don't actually know what it's called, but their house, wherever they stay there, and the parliament. And so we stayed in that really nice hotel. One of the first things I remember the next morning when we got up, it must have been 8 or 9 because we were just so tired. My dad says, okay, breakfast, let's go. So we headed down the elevator, and gold inlaid it seemed. The hotel was just absolutely amazing. And then, of course, they directed us to the dining hall, and it was like a dining hall. It was like, you can imagine what the scene was in Hogwarts when they turned turned all the food on, and all the tables, just tables and tables of food, glorious food, as they say. And it was crazy. There was a station for omelets. There was caviar. There was breads galore, French breads, pastries galore, fruit, just amazing. Just it was something that I have never seen anything like it. It was absolutely crazy. But my brother Paul and I, we were willing and ready to eat as much of that stuff as we could. And so we took off, and there we went. Um, we stayed there for somewhere between 2 weeks and a month. So we had to eat those meals every day. Lunch, same thing, just mountains of food, and dinner, just mountains of food, and big Olympic pool in the back. And uh, we learned how to take the cabs down to the bazaar. My parents were out looking for homes, someplace for us to live. And of course, we did have to start school after about 3 or 4 days. I believe that was a Monday. So we got there Tuesday or Wednesday. And Thursday, Friday, we got checked in, get the rest of our shots, whatever we needed. And then I believe we started school that next Monday, which would make it what today is the 30th. So 6th, 7th of October of 1975. And that in itself was another eye opening experience. I went to the high school, of course. Paul, Michael, and Rachel went to the middle school and the elementary school, which was in a different area. Our school was pretty much like downtown, and these big gates open up. You have to go inside this big gate to get into these to the compound, as they called it. Buses pulled in, but at this point, we were in a private. We had a private driver, so we were taken to school the first few weeks until we figured out the bus situation. And then Paul, Michael, and Rachel had to go with my other driver all the way up north to the American schools up there. So more about those schools, more about some things there. I'm going to probably get Paul, Michael, or Rachel on this one of these videos to talk about their experiences. I know that mine was unbelievable. It was one of the most amazing times of my life. Uh, those of you that know me know how fondly I talk about living in Tehran, and how sad I was to have to come back to the United States, mostly because I was having fun, and I finally had the guts and the nerve to ask out another half scout of girls, and she said yes, and we went out once, and then of course we find out that we have to move, so we had to come back when I was a junior. So that being said, cheers. Drink some more Texas wine, Red River wines again. Mm, mm. This is the Monastrell from the Texas High Plains, and it's amazing. You should come out there and try the award-winning Tempranillo that they make. And if you're lucky, I'll be out there maybe working one of those days, because I'm going to start working that tasting room very soon. All righty, Wino guy out. I'm going to talk more about moving to Tehran as days go, and talk about wine and other things Texas wine. Cheers, y'all.